almost any comic book shop in Portland.
Really?
Yeah, I've got them on every shelf.
Fucking A.
These are fucking pieces of artwork right here. I mean, every single one has a handmade cover, and it's really, I mean, it's not the highest quality printing, but it's really high quality printing. Look at the colors on there.
The comic is called Sundries.
And it's mostly visual. I can tell that just by looking right now. I mean, there's very little dialogue in it. It's the story is told in pictures. This is really beautiful. I mean, I'm really impressed. I love this. I really love it. It's very cool. Now, how much do you sell one of these for?
$6.
It's so cheap.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. They really are. I mean, I don't even know how to...
Here's 5.
Cash money!
And I've got...
Wait.
I got quarters.
Sweet.
A quarters.
We love quarters.
I'm telling you, man.
Because you guys hooked me up with this, I'll give it to you for $5 even. How about that?
All right. Deal.
I don't know who put that there.
Well, I'm telling you, somebody else thought that it was worth $20.
Can we have you sign it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That would be.
But I will only sign it with that tied together.
What?
Do it on the red then.
Yeah. And if
I don't think it's gonna bleach it.
This is all you're gonna get, man. So it better work.
You guys are watching this happen.
I love this guy. He works for TriMet. Actually, he started working there about 6 months ago, and he's.
Oh, here we go.
He's got a baby on the way. He just got married about a year ago. I mean, this guy's life is just jumping off right now. Oh, it's beautiful.
It didn't bleach it.
It didn't. Well, it's not a bleach pen.
What is it?
It's just it takes out stains.
It'll discolor it enough for there to be marks.
I don't know if it will.
I'm pretty sure it will.
All right. Well,
but dude, this is an original cover. This is not a print.
So each comic that you would see would have its own.
See that? There's marks there.
It would have its own individual.
I don't know. And what else you got there?
What else? I brought a script. So before I start a comic, Sundries. That first issue of Sundries wasn't done like that. It was literally that first comic that I named after my wife, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first Sundries comic that I did. So as I progress, like, my work is really chronological, and depending on where I made it in my process depends on the technique and the quality. So I feel like I'm always evolving. I'm always trying to find like a more systematic way of working.
Mm-hmm.
Even the stories in this comic are vastly different in scope, in quality, especially in quality. That first one, Katie, that first story that I did that entire comic on the back of somebody else's painting at work. I used to teach art to adults with disabilities. You know, I was just like drawing this like quick little thing up, just messing around with some watercolor.
Yeah. No, and you can see in the drawing some of the lines for the pencil marks underneath the painting. I love it. It gives it a lot of character in my mind.
That shows another piece. This whole comic was done without doing any inking or outlining, which is something that I rely heavily on.
It was all scanned?
Yeah, they're all scanned in there. There was some Photoshop work, like some of the images have been, cut and pasted in there.
Oh, okay.
Just like to make things go quicker.
Yeah.
But if you look, none of the art is outlined. It doesn't have any ink.
No, it looks like watercolor and pencil mostly.
And that's something that I rely heavily on now is ink, but also watercolor. I've been really in this struggle with, should I color things on the computer or should I use watercolor? And I think I'm staying with watercolor anyway. Yeah.
That's pretty cute.
It's always good to put a picture of yourself in the back of your comic.
This guy is a character, for sure. I love this. I really do.
So anyway, so I brought the script. It's kind of boring, but
it shows how
a process.
Yeah, there's a process. And is it more?
So I'll write. What I do is
that almost has no dialogue in it at all.
No.
Do you start with dialogue or do you start with visuals?
One of my most prominent influences in storytelling is a little short comic or short animation called Eon Flux that premiered in Liquid Television.
Right.
I also draw heavily off of the endings of fighting video games.
Okay.
And I'll explain that by saying that I love this idea of the viewer implanting their own mythos. Or mythos?
Yeah.
Mythos,
MYTHOS.
I've heard it said always.
In a story that you've given them. And I feel like in art, people are always asking you questions. In my art, people are always asking me questions.
Right.
What does this mean? Oh, it's got to mean something and this and this. And I've never been one to answer those questions. I've always been more fascinated by the degree of questions that are asked about an individual artwork or even about a story. And the thing is that with stories, we want to give a lesson. We have an agenda with a story. And we want to give this information out.
Right.
But if you boil down stories to just like their raw components and let the viewer ask more questions than you give them, I think that that's a really enticing and a very intriguing way of telling stories. The other thing that I like about not giving a lot of information, dialogue, is that you can give information slowly. So you've got one character that shows up, he's very mysterious, and then issues and issues down, he like appears again, and then you make these connections. I bring up fighting games because fighting games do this a lot, where you have to play all 10 rounds with this one character, right? And then at the end, you get that particular character's end story. And it's not until you play all 10 rounds with the other character that you see that these two characters actually combine.
Yeah. There's one specific game that I can't remember the name of that comes to mind.
Tekken is...
that's the one.
The one that does
Tekken.
that a lot.
Yeah, when PlayStation 2 was brand new,
Oh
Tekken was
God,
hot.
that game.
And I played a lot of Tekken, and
I lost so much money on that
all
game.
those characters had these different backstories, and you didn't get to hear them until you beat them.
Yeah. So those are the kind of influences that I draw off of. The reason why I bring up Eon Flux is that she always died at the end, and her motives were always unclear. If you look at my other stories, you'll see that most of the time we enter a storyline in the middle of an event.
Right.
You know? We don't know who these people are or why they, like the Pug God, for instance. We don't know who they are or why they're there. I do. I've got this whole thing worked out, but I'm not going to tell you until 100, or I don't know how many, but until I feel comfortable telling you, and until then, you've got this, and you get this opportunity to kind of like surmise.
Yeah.
Guess what it's going to be.
You talked to me earlier about hiking in the Appalachian Mountains, the Appalachian Trails,
right,
and how you would use your time alone to come up with stories in your mythos, and
right.
Can you explain to the audience a little bit your experience in the mountains and?
Yeah. I don't think that, like, storytelling to me has kind of been a side effect of a situation. Like, those stories that I came up with on the Appalachian Trail were almost a way to not maintain sanity. It wasn't like that bad, but it was more a way to
keep yourself preoccupied, keep your mind occupied.
Yeah, to keep myself entertained, but it wasn't like I was searching for them either. Like, they just kind of happened. There's a lot of inspiration. I get a lot of inspiration from nature. I always have. I was a Boy Scout, and when I got out of Boy Scouts and became an adult, I just did hiking on my own. I haven't done much hiking lately, which is a real tragedy because we live in a beautiful state.
Yeah, we do.
I wish I could do more. But there's something about, like, there are just some things that when I see my imagination just goes on overboard.
Now, would you
secluded
say that
places in the woods are one of those things?
Would you say that your stories are personal?
Well, yeah.
They tell a personal.
Are they autobiographical?
Yeah, I mean.
No, they're personal as in they mean something to me. They're not secret.
Right.
I'm not going to waste your time explaining what things mean, if they mean anything.
Right.
Especially because, it goes against the kind of... It goes against the agenda of the work, which is for you to ask the question.
Right.
To lead them on.
Right. To try to guess.
Yeah. And I think that's, in a way...
Do you try to throw curveballs in there, or are you, do you foreshadow, or are you trying to be like, bah, you didn't expect that, did you?
No. I'm not gonna M. Night you.
Yeah.
M.
Night Shyamalan. The homeboy played that out in 2 movies, and then it was dead. Nobody wanted to see that shit anymore.
I feel like that's a novelty. I'll get you one.
Hey, thank you.
It's a novelty. It's not a which. Not that I'm saying Rod Serling was a novelty. I mean, he was the master of the curveball.
And he wasn't a novelty though, because it was always different. It was every show had a different twist.
I won't say that I do twists, but whatever I have in mind, I hope you never see coming.
Because it's original.
Right. Well, because I'd like to think that my hope is that what is going on in here is more bizarre or it's somewhere other than you're at. If my imagination is on par with you or is in the same kind of zone, then you're kind of wasting your time reading my stuff. You're like, I could.
I'm not going to learn anything new off of it.
Right. I've heard a lot of people that I've come to respect in my life for different reasons. I've heard people say, I don't read fiction, or fiction's a waste of time. And to me, a story is really important. I think that stories can change your life. I know that there are stories that have changed my life in all kinds of different mediums, in books and movies.
Well, and Spider-Man. Because, I was like 7 or 8 when I discovered Spider-Man. And Spider-Man Spider-Man had problems, right? He was the first superhero